Well, thank you, Marty. I appreciate that. And one of the things too, I just sort of get this complaint from a lot of people is they always say like, well, the last notary we had like, kind of forced us through this and was like, counting minutes and kind of rushing everybody. And so I just tell everybody, it's like, hey, I'm here for you. This is a big decision, so I'll let you take your time and read through things and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, that's one of the things I pride myself in. So what I thought I would do today is go over just some things that I think a lot of people are unprepared for when they're signing real estate documents. Oftentimes I'll get to the table and I'm the first person that tells them, hey, you got to fill out these tax forms, or hey, you got to fill out these different documents about your loan, about your mortgage, about the purchase of the home or the sale of the home. So I figured I'd bring some in, and in case you guys ever confronted with that type of decision, at least you'll be aware of what you need. So let's see here. I'll do this. If you can pass these down. Sure. So the first form I wanted to talk about a little bit is the California 593. And do me a favor, at the end I'll collect all these. I redacted the information, but just in case I missed something, I don't want to leave anything out there that has proprietary information on it. So when you're selling a house, and let's see, this is page 3. One of the things that they try to figure out is whether or not you can qualify to either withhold taxes or not withhold taxes on the sale of the property. And typically when we get to this form, most people have no idea how to potentially fill it out. And I always say, I'm not a tax consultant. I can sort of tell you what needs to be filled out, but I can't advise you on how to fill it out necessarily. So, but one of the quickest ways to figure out whether or not you are exempt from withholding is if you're selling your primary residence, for example. So, and that qualifies, I believe it's, if you've lived there 2 of the past 5 years, then it would theoretically qualify as your principal residence. So that's the first question in part 3 on page 1. And then there's a number of other different options. I mean, let's say, for example, you received the home as, let's say you're the trustee of someone's living trust. So you had a parent that passed away and you become the owner of the home. It would still qualify to not have to take taxes out or have taxes withheld from the sale of the property. So just to give you guys an idea of what that form looks like, and I always say this too, and even during the signings that I do, if you need to contact somebody, if you have a tax consultant, you have a good friend that just knows taxes better than you do, feel free, give them a call, just make sure that you're making the right selection on the form. But it's always good, I think, to be prepared for something like that. So let's see, pass this one along. So this is a U.S. Patriot Act customer identification form. This comes along with just about any residential mortgage that I see. Some of the hard money loans that I've seen, they don't have this particular form, but oftentimes what I'll run into is I'll have a couple that's coming up from the Bay Area and they're buying a home and no one has given them a heads up that this form is in the packet, and it does require 2 IDs. So everybody usually has their driver's license, but not everybody has maybe a secondary form of ID. And that can qualify as anything from, let's see, like a medical insurance card would work. Even a Costco card would work because they accept your social security number. So that would be a secondary form of ID that I could take. A utility bill would work as well. Let's see, property tax form, that would work. So there's a number of different options, but not everybody's prepared necessarily to bring that when it comes to the a passport would work perfect too. Yeah, and most of the time that's in somebody's safe at home. So, but anyway, but that typically goes along with any residential mortgage packet that someone's signing.
Can you use a copy of a passport?
No, unfortunately, I have to see the actual item,
Okay.
no matter what. So, because occasionally I have had people where they just literally lost their wallet somehow, and they're like, well, I have a picture of my ID.
Yeah.
And it's like, I have to get you at least to get the printout, and then probably show me like another form of ID with your picture on it too. So I can't take like a digital copy or even a hard copy or anything like that. It has to be the actual item. Let's see, what else did I want to talk about?
What about a business card?
No, unfortunately, a business card would not qualify, and there's a number of reasons for that, but there's no sort of, like the DMV, for example, obviously would be a sort of a credible government office that would sort of be able to sort of use that as a qualification for ID. So it has to be something a little bit more official that.
Your credit card with your name, oh, it need a picture, right?
Well, so with the one thing about the Costco card, for example, because they basically take on your Social Security number when you apply for membership, that sort of it's almost like the same thing as taking like a Social Security card, which nobody usually carries around with them, but it does qualify as a secondary form of ID, and that's for the Patriot Act form individually. So
What about their Medicare card?
that would work. That would absolutely
Yes.
work. No question.
Anyway, in her next
Stuart works in Salt
Stackhouse.
Yeah.
You're independent insurance agent.
All right, Paula, I'm gonna put you on the spot on this one because I'll be honest, I've never and again, if you don't necessarily have an answer, that's okay. This particular form, this is the California Per Diem Interest Disclosure Form, and there's two options on that form, and basically what it references are banking holidays. So let's say you're going to close your loan, right before Christmas, for example, and there's a banking holiday between when you sign and when funds are transferred or when the house gets purchased and everything else. So there's two options. You're supposed to pick one, and very rarely get people that have at least talked to their loan officer or talked to their escrow officer or even their real estate agent about the options that are listed there. So it's just always a good thing to, and again, I don't know if you had any input.
Is there another, do you have an extra copy of
Let me,
it?
grab.
Stuart's
So
gonna hand it
there's,
over.
thank
Here.
you. There's
Oh.
two
Sorry.
particular forms or disclosures that they have that are really, really tricky. One of them is an initial disclosure that you get that says, it talks about waiving the appraisal, pardon me, appraisal review period. But the way they word it is so tricky, nobody knows how to pick the one. We have to go, pick this one. That one is a whole lot easier than this one. So this one, you have to choose one of these three choices at the bottom, and like Shane was saying, one of the choices is, the first one is pretty self-explanatory. Arrange for the disbursement of the loan proceeds immediately following a business day. And why does this matter? It matters because the client is the one giving permission to pay interest starting on the day the loan disperses, right? So if we fund or disperse today, the interest on that loan starts today, okay? If today is Friday, but now we can't record the deed of trust until Monday, then they're gonna pay interest for 3 days and not be able to actually own the house. They're just, they have a loan, but they don't actually own the house yet. And they can't move in, they can't get a key, so that's why this is important. But the second one, I'm just gonna read this. If the funding of the loan to escrow happens to fall on a Friday, please arrange for the disbursement on the following Monday or Tuesday if that Monday is a bank holiday. I acknowledge and understand that I will be charged blah, blah, blah per interest for that day, for the total per diem, blah, 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 to facilitate funding on a Friday and dispersing on a Monday or Tuesday. So I acknowledge that they actually have changed this. I acknowledge that it may be possible to avoid the additional per diem interest by funding on Monday or Tuesday and disperse on Tuesday or Wednesday if Monday is a bank holiday. So, yeah, they've changed this. This is way easier.
Okay.
Okay, so pretty simple. So basically the second one, they're waiving, they're just saying, yeah, whatever, fund it, I don't care. I'm gonna take the chance, or I know it's not, or maybe they've arranged to get the key early, you know, or whatever, so they don't care, they're gonna go ahead and waive it by doing that, then they're going to, they're gonna pick the second one. The first one just says, no, just do it the following business day, just disperse the following business day, right? So like if, for example, we know we're not gonna fund until maybe afternoon and there, it could risk being able to record that same day, or if the county closes early so they can't record, there's so many things that go behind it, so it's always something that is good to discuss, and I do, if I know that we're not gonna fund until later, then I'll wanna say, hey, do you wanna fund today or tomorrow, or whatever that is, but yeah, they've cleaned that up a lot.
Thank you for the explanation on that.
Yeah.
I definitely appreciate that. I've had occasionally where a loan officer's actually been at the signing and got much less of a explanation than what you just provided. So thank you, Paul, appreciate that. Let's see, I was trying to think. One other thing I wanted to pass out, and this is just, it's really more for me, but you could recognize it if, let's say, your notary is not paying attention. So in the state of California, for the typical notarization documents that I use, the acknowledgement and the jurat, there's language that's in a rectangle, essentially, at the very top. And so oftentimes, like, we'll get loan docs that are from another state. And so because they're not obviously experts in California, they're not going to provide what's needed there. They're going to have maybe a limited version or a different version of, let's say, that particular acknowledgement. So if you see your notary start to fill that out and you don't see that rectangular box with the verbiage on top that says, notary public or other officer completing this certificate verifies only the identity of the individual who signed the document to which this certificate is attached, and not the truthfulness and accuracy or I think it's validity, excuse me, thanks, of that document. So if, for whatever reason, if you're just paying attention, and they start filling out one that's in the set, basically, the document package, just keep an eye on that, so, because they're filling out the wrong form, because we're in the state of California, so.
So we're looking
Yes.
for the box?
I'm just curious, and I think it's kind of died down. Have you ever gotten to the table with somebody and then it was fraud, or it wasn't gonna go through, or have you had that experience ever?
I'm trying to think. Like, and you know, I feel like my bartending experience and nightclub experience gives me a good kind of, you know, estimate on seeing a fake ID. I
was just
haven't come across
curious,
anybody
yeah.
like that. I had one gentleman that canceled his loan, and that was because he was working with Lennox Financial, and there was a disagreement on the cost of the loan itself, and I think there was a difference between about $5,000 of what he had theoretically agreed to. So what he said at the very beginning, and he was an attorney, he just said, I'm going to sign these with you, but I'm not going to let you take them with me unless my loan officer calls me back. And so we sat there, signed them. I waited for probably an extra 15 minutes, and I gave him the FedEx label and just said, if you get this figured out, if you can drop it off at FedEx for me tomorrow, that would be great. And as it turns out, he decided to get a loan from someone else. So that's the only time I've ever really had somebody cancel on me, like during a signing. But I haven't run across, you know, like a scenario where I felt like there was some illegality or somebody was, you know, misrepresenting themselves in some way, shape, or form.
Okay, I was just curious, because that's happening a lot now with vacant land. But I think they catch it before it goes all the way to the table, you know.
Paul?
Just curious, oh, sorry, just curious,
Ladies first.
did you get paid for that?
On that one, I got what's called a trip fee and a print fee.
Yeah.
So I didn't get paid the full fare, basically, but I did get something for it.
Okay.
So.
Bob, sorry.
I was curious
Bob.
about that too.
You know, nobody's perfect. Say you went through and you made an error on this. What happens? I mean, is it a big deal?
It's a big deal from this standpoint, and it's part of the reason why I have insurance. So if documents are not back in time, sometimes loans won't fund, and they can miss out on their rate lock, and all of a sudden if that changes, then the price per month changes, the interest rate changes, so everything, it's like dominoes basically, like things can really create a problem. So, but on occasion,
That little box they checked
Yeah.
maybe isn't right anymore.
right, exactly. So, really what happens is I get contacted, and let's say I missed a signature, or I missed a set of initials, or I actually had one couple and we were passing documents around in a circle, and she initialed a page on the deed of trust, no, on the note, and she was not on the note. And it was like the 4th page, and she just picked it up on accident and initialed it, and they sent it back to me and said, we need to have her re-sign this page, but not initial it because she's not on it. So, yeah, I mean, the littlest things can get caught up, but usually it's just a question of me contacting the person and saying, hey, we made a mistake yesterday, I can meet you at work, and I'll follow up and be there in a half hour and, have you sign off.
But
So-
let's say that happened, and you didn't catch it, they didn't know, and it goes on.
Well, that's what everybody at the lender and everybody at the title office, I mean, there's like multiple checks basically, and so as soon as it hits them and they see the mistake, they contact me immediately and say, hey, we need you to get this fixed now. And they usually have, all the other documents in place, so they can usually still kind of keep the process moving, but I gotta get that mistake fixed as soon as possible, so.
Do they still list out the names, the prior names? Is there still a document like that?
Oh, you're talking about like AKAs or?
Yeah.
I get those on occasion, although most of the time there isn't a ton of AKAs that are listed. It depends on the person sometimes. And some of
Not
them
like
are,
it used to be.
yes,
They used to do that like 15 years ago, and I was in a signing, and me and the notary had to walk out because the wife had been married, had a marriage in there that the husband didn't know about. And he was completely, it got like,
well, there's,
yeah, and we're like, okay, we're gonna go get a cup of coffee now, and y'all work it out. Yeah, they ended up signing and closing, but it was very uncomfortable.
there is a form that typically, and it's not with everything, but I've seen it where you have to declare if you have a domestic partnership. And
Yes,
so,
yeah.
and that's usually filled out in front of the spouse that's
Yeah.
sitting right there, and so, and I haven't had a situation like that, but I always wonder if somebody's gonna admit something that they haven't told their wife or their husband before, so, but yeah, that's
We usually
kind of part of the
check that
process.
A quick question, all these forms, they come into someone else's packet, you don't have to bring the forms, do you? You yourself.
Right, no, typically, other than the acknowledgement, this is all within a packet for the sale of a home or the purchase of a home or a refinance.
You just have to become familiar with all the forms.
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
And it changes by lender too. They don't, even though a lot of them are
Yeah.
similar, they don't all look the same. And so a testament to Shane is that, that's a big job
Oh, I can
to
tell.
notarize so many different documents and pays attention to what they are.
Just remember, you cannot give advice.
Right,
Right.
No advice.
Okay, we do have to move on. However, this is a great opportunity to get together with Shane and have a one-on-one and get some more
And you
information.
wanted these back, right?
Thank you,
Take
Jeff.
this back?
Yeah, if I
Thank
could-
you, Shane, great.